Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Introduction to Web Development. Now in this video we are going to be going over what are called semantic elements. And these are essentially all HTML, and what semantic elements do is they are ways of writing HTML that either do something very small or don't really do anything, but their point is to kind of explain themselves. So when a programmer or another web developer looks at your code, they'll like kind of already know what that code is showing. For example, you have like big picture semantic elements like header, footer, and main. And in our HTML, they literally look like header. And just looking at this, you know that whatever's inside these tags is going to be the header for our website. For example, on Google here, this would be the header up here. Or this actually would be the header and then the nav. This would be the nav, all of these links here. And that's also one of the semantic elements. And a nav means a nav bar, or like the navigation, how you kind of move around the website, which is usually at the top inside the header. And then of course you have the footer, which would be this little gray section here on the bottom. This is the footer. The main, which is the main content, which in this case would be pretty much all of this content in between the header and footer, would be the main. So for example, as you can see, these are all just elements that kind of explain themselves and help give the programmer a better understanding of what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and jump straight in. We're going to open up our index.html and then hit the go live button in the bottom right. And then once that opens up, you should be able to see our table code, which we left off on in the previous episode. So if you remember, let's just do a small recap. To create a table, you actually define a table element, and then you nest. And remember, nesting means you basically put it inside. So notice you open the table and then you close it, and everything inside, all the elements in here, are called nested elements because they are inside of the table. So then you nest a bunch of table rows, or TRs, which serve as the different rows, and then the TH, these two are the two columns, and then these TDs are also columns except they're not bolded, while TH stands for table header and then TD stands for table data. So that's the only difference. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and actually delete, or you know what, we can actually keep this code because this table will be part of our main website. So to get started, we're going to use header. So inside our body here, the first element that you'll usually see on a regular website will be header. And that this essentially is saying like this is what's the header for the website. And you can think of semantic elements somewhat like divs. So if you remember, we had a div, or at least certain semantic elements. It's kind of like a section or a container for certain things. Well, there's actually another semantic element called section, which if we come here and look, it is right here. And section is fairly close. Usually it's used for separating different sections of your website. And again, like that's one of the best ways to explain what a div is. So a lot of these semantic elements can be treated somewhat like divs with descriptions with them, like header. So inside our header, we usually have a nav. And then, right. So we have a nav usually, and a nav stands for a navigation bar or a nav bar. And what we do with that is generally we have a bunch of links in the nav, and people can click it. Like you can click a button to go home, or click a button to go to the store, or go to the about page or the contact page or anything. And usually inside our nav, we have a UL. Now this is just standard practice where we have an unordered list inside. And if we put stuff in here, like let's put LIs, if you remember from the list video, home, and then LI, and like about, and then LI, and then contact, and we save this. Notice it actually does make a bulleted list. So I'm not going to get into this in this video, but normally we actually add styles to this in order to actually make this look like about, store, Gmail. Like we can turn this into this with CSS. And I'm not going to go over it, like I said, but probably in a future video I will. So that's basically what the header, the header and nav are used for. Same thing for the footer. The footer is another HTML element that comes here near the bottom before you end your div. And then again, you put paragraphs, maybe you put a bunch of stuff in here, and this kind of just denotes the bottom. And usually sometimes you can give it a background color of gray, for example. And if you see here, like this footer is a little bit grayer, you would make this whole thing gray. And you would have to change the styling a little bit to actually make the whole width gray. But for now, we'll just do this. And that is a little fun fact is you can embed, you can put little snippets of CSS inside an element by just giving it a style attribute as opposed to putting it inside this style.css over here. You don't have to. Like if you want to add an embedded style, and right now I'm mainly doing this for demonstration purposes. It's not generally advised to do this because your code can get quite messy when you just have a bunch of styles inside your HTML, which is why people like to separate it out here in the style.css. So that was most of the big picture elements, including and main is kind of like the middle one. So again, we have our header here, we have our footer here, and then we would have our main in the middle between them. I'll just grab this and drag it over here. It's safe. Let's go ahead and indent. There we go. So yeah, the main kind of goes in between the header and the footer. So that's the third big picture element. And then let's move on to the breaking up. So we have breaking up parts. We already covered the nav and kind of the section. Sections are just, you can even put like a section, like sections just kind of describe different parts of the website. So we could put this whole code inside and then that would be a section of our website, for example. Let me just fix the indentation here. Boom. Okay. So yeah, that's what section is for. And remember, these elements are mainly for helping the programmer. You come here and you see main section. And then you can even see section like ID equals like company explanation or like sales table, sales dash table. And a programmer comes in, sees main section ID sales table. They already kind of know what all of this is describing. It's a sales table, for example, and stuff like that. So that's what semantic elements are really used for. And then let's go ahead and see the article and aside. So articles and asides, again, an article is somewhat similar to a section, except in the sense that an article is generally not necessarily not related to the content of the website, but it is kind of on its own. It's freestanding, like I am an article. And an example of when we use these articles are if you have a blog post. Well, the blog, all of your code in the blog is, in the header, the main, the footer, but then the actual post itself, the thing that the author writes, is inside an article element. So that's kind of like, it's not related to the website itself, but it is a useful, like, self-contained piece of information. And then, of course, you have an aside, which is like an article, except it doesn't have to be related. So you can say, I am an aside, not necessarily related to the website content. So again, like an aside and article are somewhat similar, except you can see they're used in different cases because just the connotation or the meaning around the word article versus aside. Aside is kind of something off to the side. Article is like, a part of the website, but it's not necessarily dependent on anything inside the website. So those two. And then there's a bunch of random kind of semantic elements like mark. Mark just highlights stuff. So if we put mark in between a couple like that, that just highlights the and right there. So little fun element. Figure and fig caption. I'm not going to use these because I don't really use them that often, but you would surround an image in a figure tag, which is, a figure is kind of like an image or a data, like a diagram or something like that. The main places I've seen figures are in like textbooks, like they'll say figure A, or in research papers, figure A, figure B, and then a fig caption would kind of describe what's in the figure, like a picture of a bird. And then you would have the details and summary. Now these two are used for collapsibles. So let me clear some space here and create a details tag, and then so we put a summary inside the details, like this is a summary, and then we want to put a P or paragraph saying this is the data, And if we save this, it says this is a summary, and then you click on it and it says this is the data. So that's kind of what a details and summary are for. Just little cool elements. And then you have time. And what goes inside time is just literally time. So you would put like a P and then say 10:59 p.m. except you would, or it is currently, and then you would put this in a time. And this is just, I've never personally used this, but I guess it's just for denoting to the code itself that this is time. So if you're creating some sort of code to crawl a website in the future, like this helps you figure out like whatever's inside is supposed to be time. So it's again, it's semantic. It helps the programmer know like this is supposed to be a time of some sort. So those were the main semantic elements that I went over. And overall, this whole video has just been about like a ton. I'm just been machine gunning elements at it into your mind, I guess. And the goal is to kind of just know all of these elements. I don't personally use all of these like very often. I use these pretty often when developing websites, and these and a couple like detail summary sometimes and stuff. But you know, it's just to know that they exist and to kind of know like, oh whoops, I misspelled this. Just to kind of know like, hey, I'm thinking maybe I need some sort of collapsible, and then like you remember, hey, that was in this video. Well, the point is to come back to this video and maybe rewatch it and kind of like re-look at it, or even just looking it up, how to make a drop down, and you already have like you've already been exposed to what it is, and over time you will start to memorize these kinds of elements. And it's just, this is basically just an introduction to that. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see future videos like this, or if you missed any previous videos in the series, go ahead and check out the playlist linked in the description, where I'll be uploading daily. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.